And here we go. Can you see that, Olgan?
Yes, we can see it now. Can you start show? Okay, yeah.
There you go. Great.
It's perfect.
So, it says self-direct to learn, self-direct to live, 8 MOOC studies. So really, we've cut this, I think, to 6, and we're going to present to China and Thailand next week. We're going to do 3. So we're going to do 6 because the first 2 aren't that important. But let's go through some trend data at the start here. And by the way, some of this data will stem from MEINA's dissertation and the follow-up study to it, which I've interviewed, and she interviewed a bunch of people for that. So if you look at the last question we had was about MOOC data 2019, 110 million students, 900 universities, 13,000 courses, 820 micro-credentials, and 50 MOOC-based degrees. It's pretty impressive, over 100 million people learning from MOOCs. There are 7 billion people on the planet, so it's not one in every 70 people on the planet took a MOOC. Okay, at that time, approximately. What were they taking? If you look at the courses that they were taking, it changed by country. In Mexico, they were taking speed reading and finance and photography. In the US, they were taking Adobe Illustrator and photography and graphic design. In Italy, they were taking guitar and Photoshop. Well, why were they taking guitar and in Spain, piano? If you remember in the pandemic early days, they were on the balconies, they were quarantined, and everyone was learning to play guitar for their boyfriends and girlfriends and piano. I'm sort of kidding, but that really happened. In India, they took communication skills and finance. So there's no one answer to what are people interested in, the amount of people that are interested in taking MOOCs and so forth. In Nepal, they were taking English MOOCs and many other things as well. Astronomy, Egyptian history, and you name it, their kids in Nepal were taking it. And as you look in the top 10 areas, of course, creativity and innovation and communication and coding, computational thinking, art, these are the kinds of things, meditation, stress management, of course. So there was an explosion that happened in May. Extra 10 million students just taking from Coursera alone at that time. And what were they doing? They were taking certificate-related or non-certificate related courses. There's a rise in what's called nano degrees, micro-credentials, certificates. So people get Google IT certificates, Microsoft certificates, and other things. Skill-based training, non-degree credentials, and so forth. We flip up to 2020. Remember those earlier numbers, 110 million? Now we're at 180 million. 1 year later, 950 universities, 16,000 courses, 1,100 micro-credentials, and double. It's up from 30 to 67 degree programs. So this is not quite doubled overall, but what we saw an increase of about 30–40% from 2019 to 2020. And pre-pandemic, people were taking courses in computer science, programming, artificial intelligence, data science, career development. Post-pandemic, they're taking personal development, arts and design, self-improvement, humanities, health and medicine, and foreign language. Our friend there who teaches English or is interested in English education. That's what's starting to, English education, language learning is extremely important today. So this data is available at a website called Class Central. It was built by someone who graduated from Harvard, or not Stanford, and he updates this all the time. So we flip up to 2021. So we go back 180 million, 950 universities, 16,000 courses, blah, blah, blah. Now we're at 220 million courses. So to answer your question, did it increase or not? Yes, it definitely increased. Both the universities offering MOOCs and the students and the courses and the micro-credentials, degree programs, all increasing. The growth of MOOCs has continued to rise. What we need is this research to understand. I have the 3 books now. on MOOCs and open education, and I've talked to people all over the world, what we need to understand is how to foster a society of self-directed learners, of people who get interested, get curious as to a course and enroll in the course that might be offered through Coursera or Future Learn in the UK or whatever. You can see the data there too. And so I had these two books come out with Tom Rees from Georgia, University of Georgia, Tom Reynolds from National University, Mimi Lee from Houston, and Ka Zhang, who works with MEINA at Wayne State. 3 books on MOOCs and open education, which led me to want to do research around self-directed learning. And we've got the first one, the first study, looking at instructional design considerations and the challenges that we have. And so our first, this study got published in 2018. The newest one just got, MEINA, was it last month or 2 months ago, MEINA?
Yeah, that's right.
It was March. Yeah, it was early March. So 1 month ago is that the study will focus on. We'll start with the one first from December 2018. That's free. This is free to download. It's in the journal called Online Learning. And so if you write to us about any of our studies, we're happy to share these with you. But you know, what MEINA and I did is gathered a database of MOOC instructors. And we've got over 3,000 MOOC instructors in this database that we've surveyed about their motivation, the instructional design challenges, their professional development needs, how they personalize their courses, how they are culturally sensitive. So there's not a lot of research on MOOC instructors. So we did these series of studies on MOOC instructors and students. The most recent one is MOOC students. And there was a lot of quantitative computer log data. So what we've been doing is adding in interviews and content analysis and other kinds of things and surveys and so forth about MOOCs. So we've approached this in many ways. But my friend George Valencianos was an early researcher in the field of MOOCs and has influenced me in my own work and with MEINA. One of my former students, Dr. Timothy Hu from the University of Hong Kong, has studied the comments on a MOOC, and he's done data scraping or machine using big data analytics to see what are the things that students look for in a MOOC. Well, they want them to be with a lot of peer interaction, a lot of instructor enthusiasm in interaction. They want some active learning opportunities and timely feedback. So we looked at some of the research that's been done and we said, let's explore, let's do a study on MOOC instructors and instructional designers. And what are the challenges for MOOCs? What are the considerations for MOOCs? What are the design challenges when designing MOOCs? What challenges do they perceive when delivering and designing those MOOCs? And how do instructors address those challenges? And so we did a mixed method study that MEINA is going to walk you through part of it, and I'll come back as she goes through this. MEINA.
Thank you, Dr. BONK, for introducing the purpose of this study. To address the questions that we posed, we used the sequential mixed method design. So first, we collected quantitative data and quantitative data analysis. And then we collected the qualitative data and conducted qualitative data analysis. Next, please. So the specific data collection, including quantitative data, we use the survey. Qualitative data, we use the interview, semi-structured interview, and we reviewed the MOOC courses. These are the 12 MOOC interviewees, MOOC instructors information. They are from different countries. They have different subject background, for example, education, chemistry, or medicine. Their courses were provided were offered in Coursera, Canvas, or edX. To increase the trustworthiness of this study, for each research question, we use at least 2 data sources. For the quantitative data, we use descriptive statistics to analyze that. For the qualitative data, we use the content analysis approach. Regarding the research context, the number of MOOCs that instructors has designed, well, when we interviewed them, a majority of them only designed one MOOC courses. Only a few had designed more than 4 courses. For the research question, what are the design considerations when they designing courses? So the primary considerations are learning objectives, what they want students to achieve through this course, and how to assess them. And also regarding the logistic consideration, they consider time for designing MOOCs and how to engage learners as well. Next, please. So this figure shows the survey results about MOOC instructor design considerations. As you can see, they considered objectives of the course a lot. However, a few of them considered the tools for communication or software resources, etc.
And few of them considered the learning theory or the source of motivation, which is kind of interesting to me as an educational psychologist. They didn't consider the learning theories.
So one instructor from the US mentioned how he engaged learners in the courses. He said, each week I would write a message that would be the new welcome page for the week, and also engage students using the video by asking them questions. Next, please. Regarding research question 2, what challenges do they encounter when they are designing courses? As you can see, the assessment are the primary challenges, and also how to engage learners. The time limitation is the primary logistic challenges. And this figure shows the survey results. As you can see, assessments and engaging learners were challenging for MOOC instructors. However, technology support, etc., or how to encourage team collaboration were the less challenging based on their report.
And you would probably guess this one. Any of you, close your eyes, and what would you think would be problematic? Assessment, if it's a large class, and time, and figure out engagement, because you've all come here with the questions about how do I engage my students? That's the first question we had today. How do I engage them so they don't have to be here? So what should I do to engage my students? It doesn't matter if you're teaching 5 students online, 10 students, or 2,000, or I had 4,000 in the MOOC I taught 10 years ago. It doesn't matter the size. We all want to know about engagement.
Mr. BONK.
Yeah.
I don't.
Hello.
Hello again.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I don't want to intervene but I do have a question, if it's okay.
Sure.
Couldn't turn on the camera for now. Sorry about that. I'm Verda. I'm a graduate student, major in management information systems. I'm interested in AR and gamification. Not a surprise nowadays, I guess. As you have mentioned about motivation and instructional design and usability as well. I'm curious if you would like to say something on gamification and its role in self-directed learning.
Sure. In fact, we have a study that came out earlier this year. It came out last year as an online, this year in print, on gamification of MOOCs. And maybe MEINA can find while I'm chatting away, or I'll look for it. And we'll definitely send the article to Olgan so he can share it with you. But we had like 10 or 15 gamification principles, not only just leaderboards, but other things that you can do to get students interested in completing the MOOC. And so it seems to be a very popular topic. In terms of augmented reality, AR and VR, I have one study, and MEINA does too, with someone from Yemen in review. And I'll see if I could share that one as well. AR, augmented reality, is a way that's enticing people into courses, and that's going to be an area that explodes during the coming decade. So if you're a graduate student, now is the time to start dipping your toes into the AR and VR world. MEINA, did I address? What else would you like to say?
Yeah, so I just shared the articles that you mentioned in the chat window.
Oh, good. Thank you. So she shared the articles, but those are not freely accessible. Unlike the 2 that we're going to present here are open access. The 2 studies, the main 2 studies we're going to present are open access. The first 4 studies are all open access, actually. But that gamification is not, but we can send that to Olgan. Does that help?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
It's brand new. We interviewed We surveyed MOOC instructors about the gamification techniques, but what you should look at in that article is not just read our article, look at the reference section. There are some really good studies out there in the area of gamification. So, and I could try and lead you to them. You'll see some names twice in there. And they've done follow-up studies. They're not people I've worked with, so their names don't ring a bell right away, but I would just search through the reference section. You'll see articles about gamification in there. I would try and read the others too. Yeah. Okay, we should go on. Sure. MEINA?
Yeah, regarding the logistic challenges, the MOOC instructor, they thought the time limitation was the main challenge. So one instructor said, I didn't get a course release while I was doing the MOOC, and it was a side project at the same time as my regular workload.
So doing more work, you know, and that's why there's been an issue here with MOOCs, because instructors aren't getting extra course release or anything to do these gigantic courses. So the third research question, how do instructors address the challenges that they perceive related to MOOCs? And this is, you know, you've got on the wall here, Python Programming for Everybody. That's a gigantic course taught at the University of Michigan by a friend of mine. It's one of the top 10 MOOCs in the world, top 10 courses in the world. You see machine learning, you see data science, you see Python programming. These are very typical kinds of courses. So what do? What do people do for professional development? They look at other MOOCs. They browse other MOOCs. And they seek some help from the platform if it's possible, if they have the help system. But definitely people look at what other people are doing to get ideas. They don't take a class on how to do a MOOC. You know, they don't take a course on how to do a MOOC. They don't buy books on how. They look at other MOOCs. It's simple. They browse. MEINA.
Yeah, so this survey results shows that a majority of them browse other MOOCs for ideas or seek help from their institution. However, few of them went to conferences to get professional development or read news to MOOCs. One MOOC instructor from the US said, when I started making the MOOC, I could see MOOCs that other people had made. That's how he got that started. From this study, we found that the time limitation of creating MOOCs was the primary logistic considerations and challenges. Regarding the pedagogical factors, the pedagogical factor was the primary design consideration and challenges in MOOC design. And also the assessment and engagement strategy are the main considerations and also challenges regarding pedagogical factors.
When we designed the slide, I looked at it again and I said, Watson, Bill and Sunny Watson are grads of our program, just like Dr. Olgan is. And Hugh and Chung, Hugh is a grad of our program. MEINA Ju, MEINA is a grad. Like Indiana University graduates are doing lots of research on MOOCs, but we're not the only ones. We pick these particular studies. We'll move on to study 2. And then when we get to the end of study 2, I'm going to go through about 15 ways that you can create a self-directed learning environment. MEINA is going to explain the results a bit. And after she explains the results, we'll go through that. And then we've got 2 studies on personalization and cultural sensitivity, real short studies. So what do we want? Well, Olgan wants 1 billion self-directed learners. I want 2 billion self-directed learners. MEINA wants 6 billion self-directed learners. We all want to increase the people who are self-directed because that can only have benefits for society. We're moving from an age of information scarcity to an age of information abundance. And I wrote this book, The World is Open. And the world has become open to learning. We have all this content, free books and animations and simulations and open educational resources and free classes. So now we need to help people be self-directed learners because self-directed learners become more self-aware, more self-confident, they take more initiative, they become more goal-oriented, intrinsically motivated, they have wider interests. We want to build a self-directed learning environment. And so Randy Garrison's model, my old friend Randy Garrison from the University of Calgary in Canada, developed a model to look at self-directed learning. You know, he's kind of a historian of the field of educational technology and so forth. He has a 3-part: self-management, self-monitoring, and motivation. And we're going to come back to this figure at the very end because we did a study, mathematical study called structural equation modeling. we verified this model, that the reciprocating nature of self-monitoring and motivation leading to self-directed learning. We tried to analyze our data looking at how do students self-monitor? How do they self-manage their learning environments? Because not enough research has been done. There's a lack of research on the learner as well as the instructor. How can we personalize those interactions between the learners and the instructors? How can we foster self-directed learners in different learning environments? What kind of cues, what kind of instructional design sequences, what kind of artifacts could be embedded, or software features could be embedded to give them feedback and other kinds of things. So instructional design can influence student interaction and engagement. So if instructional design does influence interaction and engagement and lead to successful learning, how can we take ideas related to instructional design and put them into MOOCs, put them into blended courses, open course, any course? And so we've written a paper for the tech trends, Olgan. It's 15 principles, and we're going to go through actually 20 in this talk. We've really condensed it down to 15. It's in review. We think it's going to be accepted. We'll think it's going to come out this year. We'll see. And so what's lacking is how instructors perceive self-directed learning. So we interviewed instructors. The purpose of this is to look at instructors, instructional designers, and how they facilitate self-directed learning. There's actually a course called MOOC on MOOC to teach people how to do MOOCs from the Commonwealth of Learning. So how do MOOC instructors perceive the level of self-directed learning of their students? How do they in turn facilitate self-directed learning for their students? And how do you deliver content for participants' self-directed learning skills, including the technology components and other features in their MOOCs that function to foster that learning? So, and again, the second study, which is similar to our last study we'll present, or the second last, it's a mixed method study. So MEINA will take over here, and then when she's done, I'll give you 15 ways you can improve your instructional design. MEINA.
Thank you, Dr. Bonk. So this study, we use similar research methods, but at the beginning, this is part of my dissertation. We conducted the pilot interview with MOOC instructors and pilot survey with 48 MOOC instructors, and then we finalized the survey and interview questions. Next, please. So for the data collection, we primarily use a survey. As mentioned before, we use a volunteer sampling, and we have 8 instructors responded to the survey. And for the interview, we have 22 interviewee instructors. We also reviewed the 22 interviewees MOOC courses for data collection.
We have your audio going in and out a little bit, and just to repeat that, we have a database. At that time, we had 1,000 to 2,000 MOOC instructors. We have, 10% of the 2,000 completed that. So, it's a volunteer opt-in survey. We now have 3,000 MOOC instructors in our database. And so we were able to tap into that database for many studies. And so that was unique. MEINA worked really hard on that. And as you can see, her and I were actively interviewing a lot of people that came from quite diverse backgrounds from the UK, US, Australia, Belgium, Netherlands, Israel, France, and so forth. And they were in many fields: health and wellness and medicine, business, research methods, literacy, education, art. And they use different platforms: FutureLearn from the UK, Coursera, EDX. But what's interesting there is the I with T. I with T on the right-hand side means instructor with a teaching assistant. I without a T means they had no help. Self-paced means they were doing it on the students who were self-directing their learning. MEINA, what is the second from the right column and the third from the right? What are those? I can't see the top here.
Number of the MOOCs. So the second and last is the number of MOOCs they have designed or taught. The third is the number of online or blended teaching experiences, courses they have been taught.
Okay.
And so here again, to increase the trustworthiness of this study, for each research question, I used at least 2 data sources. The data analysis approach was the same with the last one. Their MOOC, the MOOC survey participants' subject background are diverse. The majority of them are from social science, medicine field. A few of them are from math, engineering, or biology field. For the first research question regarding MOOC instructor perceptions of student self-directed learning, a majority of them thought these skills or attributes are not static and it could be changed.
So if you're thinking, what's the most important finding? This could maybe be our most important finding, is that instructors, instructional designers, me and you, can influence self-directed learning skills. That it's not a static skill that you either have or don't have. It's something that you can train and teach and educate. So that's the optimistic finding of our research, right, MEINA?
Yeah. Regarding their understanding about self-directed learning, one instructor, Emma, said she thought self-directed learning is more related to self-management and motivation. So she said, I think about students managing their time and managing the coursework on their own and how it fits into their schedule and lives. For the second research question about their perception of MOOC instructor role in facilitating student self-directed learning, most of them thought that they can intentionally or facilitate student self-directed learning from this figure. You can see. Next, please. So Ashley emphasized the importance of both instructors' facilitation and student self-directed learning skills. She said the participant has a lot of flexibility on how they approach the content, but instructor has to facilitate the process. Next, please. The third question is one of the most interesting questions, is about the specific strategies that they use to facilitate students self-directed learning. First is about motivation. So their answers can be categorized into two parts: how they help students' motivation from the interim part and how they help them with their task motivation. MOOC instructor helps students identify the needs and goals of learning and sense of achievement at the beginning. For task motivation, MOOC instructor motivated students through interactive instruction, multimedia learning materials, and constructive feedback, etc. This is the example of how MOOC instructors build learning community to motivate learners. So this is one instructor from Australia. He created an interactive map to let students to say hi each other, and so they can show their locations of the students. He also created a Facebook page for students to interact with each other. The second primary category is about how they help students self-monitor their learning process. This can be categorized into internal feedback and external feedback. Internal part is related to their cognitive learning and metacognitive learning process. So MOOC instructor provided quizzes for self-assessment, etc. For metacognition, MOOC instructor have learning process. Example in next, please.
MEINA, you're popping out a little bit here, so I'm going to jump in here for just a second. And some of the things that they embedded in here were self-assessment measures. You know, a lot of MOOCs have this because they can't grade everyone, so they put in some self-checks along the way. And this was true in the early days of online learning when I was studying it too. This is a way large classes from Microsoft or Sun Microsystems were taught. MEINA, if your audio is better, maybe you can jump in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, my internet doesn't work very well. It happened several times before. Sorry. Next, please. So this is a progress indicator that help learners to monitor their learning progress in MOOC courses. Next, please. And also, they provided a peer assessment opportunity for learners to assess each other's learning and help them with monitor their learning process as well. Next. The last category, primary category for their self-directed learning is self-management. How do they help them self-management their time and learning resources? For time management, for example, they provide time frame, as we indicated before, and progress indicator, and also they provide short learning units. For resource management, they provide a flexible learning resources and clear expectations, etc. Next, please. So this is example of the time management kind of facilitation process. They have the estimated time for learners to view that. And the sub-question of this research question 3 is the technology used to help student self-directed learning. From the interview, we found that they leveraged both synchronous communication and asynchronous communication technologies, such as Google Hangouts or discussion forum. Also, they use multimedia and feedback technologies. As we can see from this study, they perceive that student self-directed learning skills or attributes can be changed, and MOOC instructors play an important role to help them. And the specific strategies are primarily focusing on motivation, self-monitor, management. Technology in facilitating. Please. Okay. So do you want to take over this slide, Dr. Wang?
Well, actually, we missed some of this one at the end here. So, just going back, there are things that instructors thought that they could do. And so we're trying to wrap that up a little bit here. Implications for instructors, instructional designers, what kind of environments do they need to build? How should MOOC vendors or providers provide? What kind of learning analytics do they need to provide to support self-directed learners? And so we turned this into a set of 10 strategies. We expanded it to 20 and then narrowed back to 15. So we had this list of 10 at the American Education Research Association when we had a poster in Toronto a few years ago. And everybody at their poster came to look at this set of 10, and they didn't look at any part of our poster, none of the rest of the posters, just looked at this item. I go, man, we need to turn this into a paper after all this. And, she looked at me and she says, yeah, right. Okay. A paper on this. Why do we need to turn a paper on this? And then finally, this past December, right before January, we wrote a paper up for Tech Trends and just sent it back in. So, helping learners set their goals. I mentioned that in the first question, help the learners get commitments and goals, build a community like the giant map that they had or some other way, build in feedback mechanisms, build in self-feedback with quizzes for self-assessment, progress bars, reflection, all these things. Okay, so I'm going to be going back through each of these and expanding on them a little bit one by one. So you want to help learners set their goals, maybe early on in the course. What do you expect to get out of this course? Have them listed. Tell the students what your goals are for teaching the course. What other people's goals have been who finished the course. Have a list of testimonials from prior students along the way. Building a community. Maybe you start to build a community with icebreakers and discussion forum, or in some other satellite smaller discussion forums based on interest areas, which I did in my MOOC. I had nursing students, education students, business students. We had different discussion forums for each one of them. Discussion boards, for instance, so forth. How do you build in, offer those immediate forms of feedback from the system feedback, computer-based feedback, embedding in quizzes for self-assessment so they can check and self-check along the way that they know something. So it's not just putting content up, but building in things like a self-assessment, building in ways for students to discuss that, building in progress bars. So Dr. Olgan can know he's got to bar 3, he's got through 3 of 10. He can see that how much time additional part are going to take. Build in reflection questions, reflection, debriefing, very important in the learning process. You want to have people step aside when they watch a long video, and then what did they learn from that video? And when they watch, a video, how long is it going to take? So give estimated time span. Design short learning units so they know that during lunch they can finish so much and go back to work having completed one of the modules or 2 of the modules. And then having some ways that people can adjust the time that it would take to complete the course, have flexible timelines and deadlines for things, and indicate how long will MEINA take to finish part 1, part 2, part 3, highlight those estimated time frames so they have confidence that they can complete them. You want to build a schemata with a map for course completion. You want to have them be self-confident, self-efficacious, as Ben Dura says in his research. How do you build self-efficacy for MOOC learners? Well, you have short successes. You have short components that people complete along the way, and we become more self-efficacious as a learner. I can do this. It's not so daunting as in Dr. Bonk's 8-hour class or 5-hour class as Dr. Olgan took my class. We will build in short snippets. Make optional learning materials that are available if they want them. If they want to learn more, they can. If they don't want them, they don't have to. And then have a structured environment. Let them know what the course module title is, what the objectives are, how much time to complete, what's the syllabus. So the WHO, the World Health Organization, did this for some MOOCs that they did on preventing COVID. They had a list of, here are the most important modules that you need to complete. How long will it take you to complete them? So they had on-screen text and narration following multimedia principles of Richard Mayer and so forth. Have a certificate at the end. My students got certificates. These are two of my students. They feel good. They finished the course. Now, the most popular MOOC in the world, I think, is the Science of Wellbeing course. It's a course on happiness. I'm sure one or more of you have taken this course from Yale University. And they've done a number of things in this course. They've had millions of students complete this course, but they have an overview of the course. They divide up the course into different segments, manageable segments, and list how long each one will take. And then they lecture, record, and capture. They have captioning of the words underneath. So if you need to read, if you're visual, if you might have an impairment, well, you have multiple ways to get at and learn the content. You might have it read to you, for instance, and so forth. So having the lectures recorded and captionings provided underneath is important, and having the instructor highlight what's important in the text, in the transcript. Maybe the instructor goes back through and says, these are the critical components of this lecture, and have some quick checks, some quick reflections, some pop-up questions that test the learners if they've learned the content, and then have some options. Maybe they don't need to go through all the material. Maybe they only have to go through half of it because they already had a course on it. And you don't want to bore students who have already learned something. Have them pick and choose what they want. She has cutting corners in the course. And then have a visual showing the course tasks that have been completed along the way and how far you need to go still. Show the work in progress and get a sense of completion, some self-efficacy along the way. You can see some of these ideas were redundant. We really have, it's 20 here, but really have 15 ideas. She has something called rewirements, where basically taking the content and using it in society. So she teaches happiness. So part of happiness is random acts of kindness for other people. To have happiness, you need to get good sleep. You need to meditate. You need to write gratitude journals and thank other people for things. So these are all parts of becoming a more happy and successful person out there. And she has people practice it. You can't just take a course and listen. She has people doing something in the real world. And then she has people come back to the class who graduated as mentors in the class, as facilitators in the class, as support people called community mentors. And she gives responsibilities for those. She's not the only MOOC instructor who does this. Many people we interviewed do this one. I think, in fact, this may be the most important of the 20, to have the extra support. Don't be an instructor without a teaching assistant. I had people playing guitar at my MOOC, playing during break time. They play songs for my people and all sorts of things. And a bonus item, peer graded assignments, letting the peers evaluate each other. So those are 21 kind of ways to foster self-directedness in MOOCs. We're going to quickly cover the last couple of studies, including this one on personalization that MEINA and I did a few years ago. How do we create a more personalized learning environment? Well, we build feedback in. Peer feedback's the most popular. System feedback's the second most popular. Instructor feedback, about 50%, not as popular in the MOOCs. Self-feedback, not so popular. We asked them, what were you interested in in personalizing the learning environment? Yes, they were highly interested, but when they went to create the course, they didn't do such a good job of it. In terms of AI, some people are interested in AI. Not much AI was happening, not much in terms of automatic alerts or automatic counseling or other kinds of embedded agents for advice. The only automated things that were happening were automated grading, having computer grade the work, for instance, multiple choice questions. And that automated grading, that's existed for decades. There's nothing new here happening yet. There's not a lot of AI yet, but it will happen in the future. So we did a follow-up study, or a study at the same time, that came out in a journal in Turkey, the Turkish Journal of Online Distance Education. It's a freely, this article is freely available from IRRODL, free. You can download it right now. We can send it to you. This journal is freely available from the TOJDE. How do we create cultural sensitive online learning? And so my team of 6, and MEINA took the lead of the second study, and we got it published last year, as you see. So what were people doing to address cultural diversity? Well, they have supplemental materials, emails, they have discussion forums, they have video recordings, all sorts of things. Study groups, not so much. Office hours, not so much. What do instructors, items that instructors provided in the most recent MOOCs? Videos, optional readings, badges, course credit, optional assignments. So we gathered all this data. We had 126 people take this one. Addressing cultural sensitivity, methods by which the MOOC instructors could showcase. Oh, so this is the question of how do students show each other what they're doing? That really wasn't happening. It was really most students were taking the MOOC on their own. They weren't sharing a whole lot. You see the numbers there. ePortfolio, 13%. A blog, 15%. Gallery of best work, 19%. That wasn't happening. Social media was the highest. In terms of perceived effort of MOOC instructors in addressing cultural diversity, linguistic diversity, about middle of the road. Some do it, some don't do it. Strategies for addressing cultural diversity. This got more interesting. There's more of them were doing this kind of thing. Having transcripts of the video, having audio you can listen to, having subtitles. Be careful with your hand gestures. I've been moving my hands all around. Be careful with that, and jokes that you tell. Be slow, Dr. BONK, when you speak, because people can. So slow speech, slow delivery, use pictures where possible, all these things. So we came up with a list. I think the strength of this article, if you download it, are table 3 and table 4. I think this is MEINA. Is this table 3? It says at the top. Mine's blocked.
Yeah, table 3 and table 4.
Yeah, so go to table 3 and table 4. You'll get a lot, I think, of important different. So we surveyed 24 of leaders in the MOOCs and Open Ed field around the world, okay? So after doing the first MOOCs book, MOOCs and Open Ed around the world, we interviewed all the people in this book. And we asked them, what can they do to address cultural diversity? You know, and they were really insightful. They gave us great ideas. So some are course design ideas, some are about technology accessibility, some are about communication, some are about creating a sense of community, translation. These are so I think this is a rich article that people need to read this part, just the tables. That's all you need to read. Maybe read some of the rest. You know, things about how do you foster collaboration? How do you foster multimedia use? You know, what things can be provided? So, you know, you can see very practical advice is provided in here and across this, you know, in simple navigation, frequently asked questions, video transcripts again, all these kinds of things that they could do. Some people were promoting translating the content into other languages, so that people in your country could have access to them. And so some MOOCs have a groups that organize to translate to, you know, to Korean or to to Mandarin or to some other kinds of languages. So now we're moving to the final study. Really, we got another one, a little brief. This is, well, we'll have to cover this briefly, MEINA, but this is MEINA, my follow-up to her dissertation. It just published last month. This is fresh off the press, brand new. You're only the second ones you're hearing this data that we've presented this to. So you're going to hear something new, maybe the third ones. But yeah, so we thought, we've interviewed instructors. We need to interview students. So the instructors put a link in their MOOC to students who responded to us. And we got a lot of students, and then we surveyed them, and then we interviewed. So MEINA can tell you how many we surveyed, and then she can tell us about the interviews. So what motivated students to enroll in the MOOC? What were the learning strategies that helped learners in become more self-directed? What were the instructional design elements that helped in terms of more self-directed? And you can see, so MEINA, I'll let you take over, tell them a little more about this study.
So this paper was primarily focusing on the qualitative part. So we interviewed 15 MOOC students. These are their demographic information. They are from different countries, like you can see the first from Turkey and or from other countries. They have different occupations.
I would say that this is really fascinating. And the one from Turkey was a Syrian refugee who was an English teacher learning how to teach, becoming recertified in Turkey. A fascinating interview of him. Everyone, interviewing people about, and I'm doing a study of Duolingo, if you've heard of Duolingo, interviewing students about self-directed learning, about open education. It's fascinating to hear their life stories and how their lives are changing. So the goal is not taking this course. So going back to your question, how do we get to complete the course? It doesn't matter. The goal is life change, not course completion. Not even a certificate. The goal is to get skills that will help change their lives. That's the ultimate goal. They get a credit, they get a certificate, they get a degree, okay, that's fine. But if they get self-esteem, if they get self-confidence, if they get more respect at home, from their spouse or from their friends or from their mother, from their father, that's the affective things. The self-confidence, the emotional side is more important than the silly little degree program, So we want to help build a society of people who want to engage in learning on their own, to go into this open learning world when they want to learn. And this interview, these people, we found there's a lot of interesting stories out there. So MEINA?
So from this research, from the interview, we found 3 primary themes regarding how to help them with their self-directed learning. First, it relates to motivation, which it can be categorized into intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, and also learning strategies. The last one is instructional elements that can support their self-directed learning, such as assessment, etc. The following are the quotes related to the intrinsic motivation. So Jacob, who is a retired person, he said, I'm very interested in topic. I realize holes in my knowledge and try to fill the holes. This is purely for intrinsic motivation for him to take the course. For some others, they had more extrinsic motivation. For example, some participants enrolled in MOOCs to help with their career development. One student, Sarah, said, to acquire and improve my knowledge as a medical physicist, I consider my resume when selecting MOOC courses. Next.
You see, as you get older, people have more intrinsic needs, more volunteer, more interest in just learning for the sake of learning. It's unfortunate in society, we move people away from that early in their careers, and we forget about volition, passion. We teach them stuff in such a dry and boring way to get them a degree to do. It's instrumental learning, not passionate learning. We want passionate learners. MEINA?
So what were the learning strategies that help their self-directed learning in MOOCs? Dan mentioned that using progress bar, like we indicated before in our presentation, all the progress bar with milestones with a small quiz that does not count for the evaluation, but they are good for you to check if I'm really learning. Next, please. Note taking is another great strategy used by the learners. For example, Dan mentioned whatever videos or whatever exercise I was doing, I was always taking notes. For self-monitoring is another strategy that they use very often, like Milena mentioned. Usually there's a test after each week. Performing it, I can see in which topic I have the biggest gap or I got it well. For self-management, for example, Dan mentioned that he dedicated a certain time to work on MOOCs. For the most part, he allocated the morning for reading and afternoon for writing. These are the self-management strategy. Next, please. The last part is related to what are the design elements that help them with self-directed learning from student perspective. Alina mentioned that being able to answer the questions after each module give her a sense of how much knowledge she retained before studying the next module. And also that it's important to have clear goals, as Dan explained some tips at the beginning and clearly state what they should achieve through this week. It's important for them. And another one is using authentic example. For example, Helen mentioned that authentic example, resources, and visuals that some instructors demonstrate in their courses help maintain their curiosity for self-directed learning.
And so this goes back to the first question we were asked. How do I get people continue to be interested? The more you can embed in high fidelity, authentic, meaningful, relevant tasks, demonstrations, interactions, the better within there.
Yeah, and also providing, thank you, Dr. Wang. And also providing more flexibility, learning opportunities. For example, Sandy mentioned that how it helped me realize that I enjoy learning a lot more when I can just be a little more casual about it. I just find it a lot more enjoyable to learn with flexibility. Small learning units is another way to help them self-directed learning. Joe said, I think what's really good is keeping it into small chunks in MOOCs. Another one is a discussion board and feedback. Like JBOK said, acknowledge that I will ask a question today. I will type in question on my computer in the forum. It may take a few days to get feedback. So in general, they want to have more real-time interaction with the teacher.
So this is the one negative comment, in effect.
Yeah.
A lot of these are more positive. This goes.
Yeah, they consider that immediate and constructive feedback will be more helpful when they learn in MOOC courses.
So finally, just briefly, we did a study. This study's been cited the most in the least amount of time. I only have 2 slides here to just brief. We're basically verifying the model by taking that survey data and putting it into structural equation modeling, and the long and short of it, it's called Self-Directed Learning MOOCs, Exploring Relationships Among Motivation, Self-Monitoring, Self-Management in Ed Tech Research and Development. With MEINA, myself, and my former student Min Young Do in Korea, we looked at motivation positively affected self-monitoring of MOOCs, motivation affected self-management, self-monitoring positively affected self-management, and self-monitoring mediated the relationship between motivation and self-management. And so basically Garrison's model was proved through our data set of 322 MOOC learners. So this is not a MOOC instructor, this is a MOOC learners, the ones that we just interviewed, that we shared the interview data with. We interviewed, was it 15 or 20 MOOC learners?
15.
15 of these 322, we interviewed 15 of them. So that's it, just we've interviewed instructors, we've interviewed students, we surveyed instructors, we surveyed students, we've looked at the courses, we actually looked at under the hood at the courses, and then we've done a quantitative study with structural equation modeling. Oh, we also did the studies of personalization and cultural sensitivity, which was interviews and surveys as well. So we've used a variety of research methods to understand what's going on from instructor point of view, from student point of view, and from the experts. Remember, again, we interviewed the experts that wrote chapters in this book. And so write to us. The slides are posted at trainingshare.com. You go under archive talks. Yeah, I'll just point out that MEINA and I have a new book. It's called Transformative Teaching Around the World, Stories of Cultural Impact, Technology Integration, and Innovative Pedagogy. If you would like the beginning and end of the book, I could share our opening and closing chapters. Unfortunately, it's not a free book. It's stories of teachers who took our class the same one Dr. Elgin took, and they wrote short stories of how they're implementing the ideas all around the world. I'll stop sharing.